lose your love for it?
What does that mean?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, we worked really hard and we were very fortunate to have that kind of success. And
He sold over 100 million records, then vanished without a trace. No farewell tour, no explanation, just gone. This is Steve Perry, the voice that defined a generation. But here's the twist. He walked away from it all, forever, or so we thought. This isn't just a story about fame. It's about loss, love, and a secret so painful it shattered one of rock's greatest legends. How did a shy mechanic's son from California become the king of stadium rock? And why did he abandon his throne twice? Let's rewind to where it all began. His full name is Stephen Ray Pereira. Yep, that's his real name. He was born on January 22nd, 1949, in Hanford, California, a tiny farming town you've probably never heard of. His parents, Mary Quaresma and Raymond Pereira, split when Steve was just 8 years old. And that shy, introverted kid you see here, you'd never guess he'd one day command crowds of thousands. But at 12 years old, Steve's world exploded when Elvis Presley burst into his living room TV. Suddenly, that quiet boy was belting Hound Dog into a hairbrush mirror. His Portuguese grandmother even nicknamed him O Cantor, the singer, after catching him crooning Nat King Cole tunes in his bedroom. But life wasn't all rock and roll dreams. After his mom remarried mechanic Andy Perry, whose last name Steve later adopted, he spent summers sweating on his stepdad's dairy farm. Yet even there, he'd hum Sam Cooke melodies to the cows. Seriously. But here's the kicker. Steve was so shy, he nearly quit music forever after one brutal high school rejection. What changed? Well, that's where the story gets heartbreaking. How did this insecure farm boy transform into a rock god? The answer lies in 2 devastating losses and 1 life-changing love. Family was Steve Perry's first audience and his greatest heartbreak. After his parents' divorce, his mother Mary became his rock. She worked double shifts as a seamstress to buy him his first guitar, while his stepdad Andy taught him the grit of hard work. But tragedy struck when Steve was just 22. Mary was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. He dropped everything to care for her, playing her favorite songs by her bedside until she passed. Years later, he'd call losing her the first earthquake that shattered my world. Decades later, Steve found love again with Kelly Nash, a cancer survivor who reignited his joy. He even dedicated his 2018 album Traces to her. But in 2012, cancer took Kelly too. Steve vanished from public life again, grieving in silence. Though he never married or had kids, Steve's music became his family. Journey's Neil Schon once said, "We were his brothers until we weren't." How did a man haunted by so much loss find the strength to scream, "Don't stop believin" to the world? The answer lies in his darkest and most defiant years. Imagine this. 10-year-old Steve Perry, hauling hay on his stepdad's dairy farm under 100-degree heat. His hands blistered, his voice hoarse from singing Sam Cooke tunes to cows. This wasn't just a summer job, it was survival. His family struggled to make ends meet, and music became Steve's escape hatch. At school, Steve was the quiet kid with a secret superpower. While classmates chased touchdowns, he'd sneak into the choir room to mimic Motown legends. But when he mustered the courage to audition for a band, they laughed him off stage. Crushed, he swore he'd never sing again, until a stranger changed his life. That stranger, a roadie for a touring band who heard Steve humming in a diner. His advice? "Kid, your voice is a time bomb. Go to San Francisco." Steve gambled everything. $50 in his pocket, his stepdad's truck, and a dream. But the city of love didn't roll out a red carpet. Steve slept in that truck, surviving on peanut butter sandwiches, until a dive bar owner let him sing for tips. Those $1 bills, they'd soon multiply by millions. So how did a broke truck sleeping nobody become rock's most iconic voice? The answer involves a haircut, a demo tape, and the greatest N.O. he ever ignored. Steve Perry's education wasn't in a lecture hall. It was in smoky bars and rusty vans. After high school, he traded textbooks for demo tapes, forming his first band, Alien Project, in 1970. They played covers for beer money. But Steve's voice? Pure lightning. Problem was, lightning struck and nobody noticed. For years, Steve hustled. He crashed on couches, sold his car for studio time, and even dyed his hair platinum to stand out. But every record label said the same thing. Great pipes, kid, but rock's dead. Then in 1977, a miracle. Journey's manager heard Steve's demo. One audition later, Steve Perry, the dairy farm dropout, became the voice of Journey and rock. It was about to be resurrected. But how did a rejected nobody become the king of arena rock? The answer involves mullets, spandex, and the greatest comeback in music history. Buckle up. This is where Steve Perry becomes legend. In 1981, Journey dropped Escape, an album that didn't just go platinum, it went diamond. Don't Stop Believin'? That song's now streamed 20 million times a month. But here's the kicker. Steve almost didn't record it. He called the lyrics too cheesy, until a midnight studio meltdown birthed rock's greatest anthem. For 10 years, Steve was Journey. Sold out stadiums, 19 top 40 hits. That voice, part angel, part freight train, made them the blueprint for every power ballad since. But behind the glitter, burnout. In 1987, after his mom's death, Steve quit mid-tour and erased his number from the band's phones. Fans felt betrayed. But Steve's solo career, Oh Sherry, hit number 3, proving he didn't need Journey, until a hip injury in 1997 silenced him again. For 20 years, the man who defined believe stopped believing in music. Then in 2018, boom. At 69, Steve dropped Traces, a raw album about love and loss. It debuted at number 6 because legends don't fade, they reload. But with 100 million records sold and a voice insured for $30 million, what's Steve Perry's life like when the lights go down? Let's talk numbers, because Steve Perry's voice isn't just iconic, it's a money-printing machine. Every time Don't Stop Believin' plays on radio, streaming, or even your cousin's wedding, cha-ching, Steve earns up to $300,000 a month from that song alone. And when The Sopranos used it for their legendary finale, let's just say Tony Soprano wasn't the only one cashing in. Beyond music, Steve's smart investments, like his California vineyard and 1980s real estate buys, kept him rich even during his 20-year hiatus. But here's the twist. He donated millions to cancer research after losing Kelly, proving legends aren't measured by cash, but impact. Professionally, Steve rewrote rock history. Without his velvet and grit vocals, there's no Survivors, Eye of the Tiger, no Guns N' Roses ballads. Even Adele calls him the blueprint. And when he finally rejoined Journey in 2020 for a charity gig, tickets sold out in seconds because the world never stopped believing. But what does a $70 million rock god do when he's not belting power ballads? Spoiler, it involves vintage cars, sci-fi obsessions, and a lot of cats. Forget rockstar mansions. Steve Perry's sanctuary is a cozy ranch where he fixes up classic cars and spoils his 6 rescue cats. Yep, you heard that right. The man who once partied with rock gods now spends weekends tinkering with his 1965 Ford Mustang. Therapy, he calls it. Cheaper than a shrink and way cooler. When he's not playing mechanic, Steve's a sci-fi nerd. His house, packed with Star Trek memorabilia. He even named his cat Spock. But his quirkiest passion, photography. He shot over 10,000 rolls of film, mostly landscapes and wait for it, abandoned gas stations. After decades in the spotlight, Steve craves simplicity. He cooks his mom's Portuguese recipes, hikes solo, and avoids social media. But in 2020, he shocked fans by joining Instagram, just to share cat pics and cryptic song teasers. Classic Perry. Oh, and that vineyard he owns. Every bottle funds cancer research. Because for Steve, legacy isn't about fame. It's about healing the scars he knows too well. But wait, did you know Steve Perry almost sang for Van Halen? Or that he secretly wrote a hit for Kenny Loggins? The final chapter of this story is wilder than fiction. Let's get weird. Did you know Steve Perry almost became Van Halen's frontman? Yep, when David Lee Roth quit, Eddie Van Halen called Steve 17 times. But Steve said no, because he was busy writing a hit for Kenny Loggins. Seriously, turns out, the voice of Journey was also the ghostwriter of 80s rock. Here's the twist. Steve's crippling fear of flying made him ditch Journey's 1987 tour. No therapy, no explanation, just a handwritten note. I'm done. Fans called him a traitor until they learned he'd secretly battled a degenerative hip disease that nearly left him wheelchair-bound. Oh, and that song you've heard 8,000 times. Steve hated it at first. He called it a corny mess, until a studio breakdown birthed the chorus. Now, it's the most streamed 20th century song, thanks to Tony Soprano and a show choir. But here's the real Steve Perry, a sci-fi geek who auditioned for Star Trek a photographer who shoots gas stations, and a cat dad who donated $350,000 to animal shelters. From rock god to ranch hermit, his greatest hit wasn't a song. It was choosing peace over fame. From vanishing act to vintage car mechanic, Steve Perry's story isn't about fame. It's about finding your voice and knowing when to walk away. If you're obsessed with untold stories like Steve Perry's, you need to watch this next. We're exposing how Simon Cowell's spending $200 million on a dystopian megamansion, robot judges, and a secret music empire. Smash that subscribe button and tap the video on your screen right now. Go before YouTube hides this video. Like and comment Believin'. If Steve Perry's story blew your mind, and turn on notifications, we drop secrets YouTube doesn't want you to see. Stay legendary.